In this lesson, we're going to be looking at how we can calculate the number of ways that objects can be connected to other objects. So we're going to be looking at how many ways we can make different combinations of different items. And to do this, we're going to be using multiplication strategies. Now, turning to our textbook, you can see our first problem is going to be relating to our snowman and the different ways that we can get him dressed. So for question 1a, we're asked the question, how many different ways can Ambika dress the snowman? And we're asked to record these ways in a list. So we're being asked to be methodical about this and thinking about ways that we can record this and make sure that our answers are going to be complete and exact. Now, in order to help you do this, think about how many scarves there are that the snowman can wear and how many hats. And then, can you find a link between the number of hats and the number of scarves to make different ways of getting the snowman dressed? And this will move us on to question 1b. Because on question 1b, we're asking, is there a link between the number of hats and scarves and the number of ways to dress the snowman? So in this one, what we're going to be thinking about, is there a mathematical way of describing what you've managed to do in your list? So we've got two questions where we're going to be thinking about making those links and making those patterns. So a slightly different way than just answering normal calculations. But I'm going to ask you to pause the video now, and I'm going to ask you to answer those two questions. So question 1a, recording this in a list, can you show how many different ways Ambika can dress the snowman? And then for question 1b, is there a link between the number of hats and scarves and the number of ways to dress the snowman? Is there a way of recording that, not as a table, but as a number sentence that we can use in the future? So pause the video, and when you're ready, we can look at the strategies we've used. So let's take a look at how we can solve this. So let's start with question 1a. How many different ways can Ambika dress the snowman? And we're going to be looking at recording that as a list. Now we can see that we've got 4 different hats and we've got 2 different scarves. So probably the simplest way to start looking at this and working it out is if I place hat A, the blue hat on the snowman, I could put that with scarf 1, or I could put it with scarf 2. So that means I have 2 different options of scarves to go with hat A. If I place hat B, the red hat, then again I can give him hat B with scarf 1, or hat B with scarf 2. So another 2 options. And you can see the image I've created here. I've got hat A with scarf 1, hat A with scarf 2, hat B with scarf 1, hat B with scarf 2, and so on. And I've exhausted all the different combinations. And we can see by drawing the actual picture by dressing up our snowman, I have 8 different ways that I can dress up my snowman using the 2 hats, the 4 hats and the 2 scarves. This picture shows exactly the same model. You can see that I've drawn a line between each hat and each scarf, and we can see that I've got 2 lines that go from hat A, that can be shown in blue, 2 lines from hat 2, which are in red, 2 lines from hat C, which is in brown, and 2 lines from hat D, which are in green. So each one has 2, 4, 6, 8. And here you can see the same idea, but written as a list. Hat A, scarf 1, hat A, scarf 2, hat B, scarf 1, hat B, scarf 2, and so on. And we can see that I've got 1 outfit, 2 outfits, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 outfits. So in every method I've used so far, I'm getting 8 outfits. 8 different snowmen dressed in 8 different ways. 8 lines that join up the hats and the scarves. And finally, a list of 8 different combinations. Now for question 1b, we're asking whether there was a link between the number of hats and scarves and the number of ways to dress the snowman. So we know that there's 4 hats, we know that there's 2 scarves, and now we know there's 8 different ways that snowman could be put together. So now we're going to be thinking whether there's a number sentence we can use, because I have for hat A 2 different ways for the snowman to be dressed. 1 hat, 2 different ways. If I look at hat B, 1 hat, 2 different ways. Hat C, 1 hat, 2 different ways. Hat D, one hat two different ways. So if we think about hat A being two different ways, and if I have two hats and two scarves, I've got four different ways. I can have A and 1, A and 2, B and 1, B and 2. If I look at the three hats A, B and C, again, this time I can have 6. A1 and A2, B1 and B2, C1 and C2. So for each hat, there's two different ways. So this links me to creating my own number sentence. So we can look at this as a number sentence now. So if we take our idea of an array, 1 hat, 2 scarves, 2 hats, 2 scarves, 3 hats, 2 scarves, 4 hats, 2 scarves. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4 hats, 1, 2 scarves. So this gives me an answer of 4 times 2 equals 8. So 4 hats with 2 scarves gives me 8 different outfits that can be worn. Now let's see whether this works the same on our next question. Now for this question we're asked, Lexi is choosing a pair of shoes and a coat for her teddy bear. And we can see that we've got A, B, C, D and E for coats and 1 and 2 for shoes. So we can list this again. So I can be saying that I have A1 and A2, B1, B2 and so on. And by listing all the different combinations that I can make by dressing up my teddy bear in this instance with coat A and shoes 1, coat A and shoes 2, coat B and shoes 1, coat B and shoes 2, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different outfits that the teddy bear can wear. And if we think about that same idea, for each coat I have 2 pairs of shoes. So for coat A, I have the possibility of 2 different outfits. If we look at coats A and B together, it gives me 4 different outfits. Coats A, B and C will give me 6. Coat A, B, C and D to give me 8. And coats A, B, C, D and E to give me 5 coats to give me 10. So it means that with 5 coats and 2 pairs of shoes, we have 10 different outfits that can be worn. So when you're going to your independent activity on here, I want you to think about the different methods that you can actually use. So the first thing we can do is we can pictorially work out what the different combinations are. Is we could actually draw it ourselves. And once we've exhausted the different combinations through images, we can simply count them together. You could allocate each item a different letter or number. So you could have, for example, your hats being letters, your scarves being numbers, your jackets being letters, your shoes being numbers, just so you can compare the two. And then you can actually join those up. You can either use lines like you can see on the screen in front of you, which I'll be honest, as the amount of different combinations gets bigger, the image becomes more complicated. Or alternatively, you could simply list them as you can see in front, or we can simply make a nice big long list and it will take as long as it takes, but we can guarantee that we're going to be right because you will do all of item A with the different combinations, all of item B with all the different combinations until you've exhausted all of them. And finally, you could use your multiplication skills. So we've got our idea of the left-hand side. I've drawn myself an array, which is quite similar to the different methods we've seen pictorially in making lists. And then finally, I've simply made a shortcut where, because I can understand this, I can work out each item. In this case, each hat has 2 different possible combinations. I've got 4 hats, so each hat is going to have 2 different combinations, so 4 times 2 to give me an answer of 8. So give different methods a different go on this time, and be making sure that you're trying a second method just to double check, just to make sure this is really clear. Because I'll be honest, these are normally the ones where if we try and move a little bit too fast, this is where we can make mistakes that we don't spot necessarily straight away. But I can promise you, when someone else looks over your works and sees it, then you'll be kicking yourselves because you'll know where that mistake actually happened. And generally it's because you've not done that second step, you haven't double checked your work. So in this activity, that's going to be your key thing. So think about the different strategies that you want to apply, or ways you want to do this, and then give the rest of the work in the textbook a go before you move on to that independent work. And as always, I really look forward to seeing your work on this one. So good luck.